Praise be to Jesus Christ, and welcome to Catholic Forum. I'm your guest host, Alan Dunst. We want to thank you for being with us today. We hope our little conversation here in West Michigan finds you wherever you are and draws you a little bit closer to Jesus Christ through His one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Today's episode, we're going to have, I think, a very interesting conversation, maybe a little difficult conversation about adherence to the church teachings, particularly in the context of Catholic universities and secondary education. And we're going to be focusing on a document called Corde Ecclessiae, which was a document that was promulgated by John Paul II and kind of called colleges, Catholic colleges, to back to their roots and back to their identity. And we've got a fantastic group of people to talk to us about that today. We have Dr. Juan Olivarez, president of Aquinas College here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
Dr. John Pinheiro,
nice
professor at Aquinas College, and Dr. Robert Marko, also a professor here at Aquinas College. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
I'm glad to be here.
You're welcome. So, to set the stage for Corde Ecclessiae, we have to kind of take a step back a little bit for a period where some institutes of higher education kind of stepped away or decided that they were going to redefine what their mission was as a Catholic institution, university. So let's talk about that. The document, I believe, was called I forgot what it's called. The Land O'Lakes document. So tell us a little bit about that document. To set the stage, this was in like 1967, I believe.
Right.
So tell us a bit about what did that document do? What did it say? And would like to start that.
I could speak to that a little bit.
Okay, great.
Actually, before that document, back in 1949, when Pius XII of happy memory was the Pope of Rome, there was a new group formed, an International Federation of Catholic Universities. So this is a group that precedes Vatican II, et cetera, et cetera. So the Land O'Lakes Agreement comes in the context of the 60s. So you're looking at 67, as you mentioned, Alan. A group of university presidents, not colleges, but university presidents, including Notre Dame, Georgetown, SLU, St. Louis, Fordham, Boston College, Catholic University of Peru, Catholic University of Puerto Rico, and Laval in Canada, presidents or an appointee of the president. Catholic U did not show up, but they sent a special assistant to the president there and talked about the nature of Catholic universities in the New Age. I went back to read the document. I was talking to Juan and to John about it too, because it has some bad press, and it's seen as kind of the downfall of Catholic higher education. I think one needs to keep this in context and also look at maybe some things in it that I think are not necessarily negative at all, but are very much the sign of the time. So you're looking at the 60s. So you got Vatican II, 62 to 65. You got Gaudium et Spes. It's the most optimistic document of the council, people would suggest. And you also have the sex, drugs, and rock and roll period. So I think all of those factors are important. What the Land O'Lakes Agreement did was say that Catholic universities should be universities, but the Catholic spirit, for lack of a better word, should somehow permeate the university also. So the key thing was kind of dialoguing with society. This is a period of accommodation, to be sure, and adaptation. I mean, this is 65. We have religious freedom affirmed in Vatican II. So you have all of these things occurring at once. You also have in that 60s a concern over state institutions now the government no longer being just neutral in terms of higher education, but really favoring state universities. In this area, for example, Grand Valley State was founded during that period. So there's a push towards that, and also therefore among colleges and universities a concern to attract as many students as possible. You have in that period you also have a diminishment, or if not complete elimination of what they call the consecrated endowment, which means that Catholic schools and universities were oftentimes subsidized by religious communities. Certainly this is true of Aquinas, and you also have a kind of new respect for the American culture. Possibly, I would say, in retrospect, a little bit too optimistic. In my personal take on that would be too optimistic. So all of these factors were kind of occurring at once. So when the Land O'Lakes Agreement came out, the emphasis of interdisciplinary concerns and the significance of theology, I think, was very good. Because at this period, the Catholic universities were beginning to really beef up their theology programs and philosophy programs. So a lot of it was not negative, but the spiral began to occur after that, and things. I think ex Corde was absolutely necessary given what happened to the state of Catholic education, and not just in the United States, but in the world.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about what did happen. What was with the practical outcomes?
I would say at many colleges, my impression was, particularly in the 1970s and 1980s at many Catholic colleges, they began to back away a bit from the Catholic identity and their Catholic roots, thinking and believing what secular folks and others had said for a long time, that somehow the Catholicity of the institution was a shackle on the mind and did not allow complete free thought and really free inquiry, and that was a negative thing, and so that led to a lot of hiring choices that then have a lot of legs for many decades,
Right.
And so that happened to many colleges, and I think that was right around the time in the late 1970s that one college, which was in pretty bad shape at the time, Franciscan University in Steubenville, began its long road to turn around. But that wasn't an overnight thing.
Right.
But,
Speaking of Aquinas, now, Dr. Olivarez, I understand you went to Aquinas in 67 through 71, right?
I did.
Okay, so you were right here kind of in that whole kind of that seminal period of when it was that. Did you notice anything as a student going through here, or coming back 40 years later to be president?
Well, as a student, I certainly did not. It was very Catholic. There was no doubt about it. And we had requirements, theology requirements. We had philosophy requirements. Many sisters were teaching at that time. We had many priests teaching here. And I'm going to speculate that probably 95% of the students were Catholic. I didn't know anyone who was not Catholic while I was a student. So it was definitely a Catholic school, and by choice I was here. 40 years later, I returned as president, and it's very different. Obviously, I find it very different. There are no sisters full-time on faculty any longer. When I got here, there wasn't a chaplain. We didn't have a priest on campus. That had been a void for close to 10 years. And probably part of the reason was the numbers of priests just weren't there, and it was hard to get them at a college, and even parishes had a hard time getting them.
Sure.
But soon after I got here, I took that challenge based on some work we had done with our strategic plan, the first one that when I was here, and we made it a goal to seek out a priest for campus. We thought that was very important, and so we did get one that same year, and it's made a big difference. But certainly the school is different, and I think what happened also back and as things progressed, lay presidents started coming about in colleges and universities that were Catholic. Boards of trustees started to change. It used to be even at Aquinas, all religious. And that started to change with lay trustees. And so it led to even other erosion of just being Catholic. So, yeah, lots of changes in those 40 years. And it's kind of interesting to have gone through Aquinas, as I did, and then come back and be in it the way it is. I saw it from the outside. I've been in Grand Rapids almost all of my career. And I was looking at it mostly from the outside and did not realize on the inside how different it was in time. And I must say that it's very typical, and what I hear from my colleagues at other Catholic colleges and universities, the same kind of erosion happened, the same kind of changes happened. And today, we're all paying more attention to it.
Let's get to the actual Corde Ecclesiae, what that document said and did, and so what was John Paul II trying to do through that document?
The term itself says from the heart of the church. So he's trying to make it, he is recognizing what is happening historically in the latter part of the 20th century, the Catholic universities and colleges, and wants the institutions to look seriously at their identity, and therefore recognize the gift that they are to society and to the church. Now, not all universities and organizations are of the same level. I mean, for example, in 1979, St. John Paul II wrote a document on ecclesiastical faculties or schools, which have a much closer relationship with the church. Places like Catholic University of America, Josephinum in Ohio, St. Mary's of the Lakes, where our seminarians train in Illinois. So these schools have a very different thing. But then he wanted to extend that to other institutions. So I think several things really struck people as being kind of touch points. One is that he required asked that all people who teach in the philosophy and theology seek a mandatum, or from the local bishop, that would say that they will present Catholic teaching as Catholic teaching and not just their own opinion. And I think that was actually a very good move in many ways. Some people protested against it. There was great protest at Notre Dame, for example. Richard McBride he may have been chair there, just was faculty member at the time that this came out, and said, no way am I going to sign that document. At Aquinas, we were offered under Bishop Rose a mandatum, and we could choose to accept it. Everyone in my department has accepted it. When we brought Stephen Davis in more recently, we were without a bishop, so he got his mandatum through Archbishop Might of Detroit. But we freely chose to do that. Secondly, there was some stipulation about the number of Catholic faculty, which also causes a great deal of concern. It should be the majority. And one of the things that John was addressing and Juan was addressing is that there was a shift after Land O'Lakes, and not because of Land O'Lakes, but during that period where loyalties began to seriously change. So the commitment to the faith community or church was much less a concern of people. And their concern may have been their academic discipline or other loyalty. So that mindset was pretty much gone in many schools. Thirdly, as Juan mentioned, the Board of Trustees should have a predominant number of Catholics, and there's been a real direction in that move, and that is very much shored up here. There's no issue there. So you need to be more explicit. I remember a great line by David Tyson, who was president then of University of Portland, which is the Holy Cross School. And his comment says, if the only connection you have with a bishop is to show up at a cocktail party with donors once a year, then there's something wrong. So the notion is that within the tradition we are tied up with the diocesan bishop. And that's significant. That has been certainly the case with Bishop David and the president here. And if you look at what began to be said after the evaluation in 2011 of the application in the U.S., things have been much more cordial and throughout the United States. And the people, as Juan has noted, have become much more serious about identity, because the question's not going to go away.
I would add that when Juan became president, one of the first things I remember him asking me and Bob and I, was to lead an audit of the school on how we fit in with Corde Ecclessiae. And so the other things in the document I would add to Bob are all these marks that you would see at a Catholic institution. And there were many of them we were doing quite well with, particularly our campus ministry was doing a fine job, but without a chaplain, which Juan took on personally after that to find the chaplain. But also our commitment to social justice work at the school was very high. And our number of theology offerings and philosophy, and there were some other areas. By that time, Catholic studies was going on, so we had other classes in English in places where they had not been 10 years earlier, but they were now. And the one missing piece so far, we talk about President Olivarez and others, but the students beginning in the late 90s, and I was not at the college then, but Bob was, I'm told. A lot of the push for a deeper identity and deeper commitment to mission has come from the so-called John Paul II generation, which when John Paul II died, he was the only pope I could remember as well, so maybe I'm on the tail end of that. But we've had such a wide range of activities. Several years ago, a group of students got together and saw donations and funded a pro-life monument, which is now outside the old chapel, where we currently have plans to build a new chapel on campus. And so they were part of behind the push for the chapel, that pro-life monument. The semester in Rome is another program that we've started in recent years, along with Catholic Studies, and bringing other speakers and events to campus. And
we became very conscious of hiring. I know Juan has a statement. He asked people to state their own vision of a school when they apply for a job. And I think that's very important. I mean, I think it's very important. I mean, so then they can self-select and say, look, I don't want to be here if you're going to push this religion stuff for this Catholicity. I think that's a very prudent move. And I think we are moving in a direction where we're certainly very, very explicit about who we are, which was not when I first came. I mean, the president was supportive at that time, Paul Nelson, very supportive. My predecessor, Sister Amata, was a bulwark of support for Catholic identity. I mean, she was without a doubt. I mean, feisty old Italian who just really supported that. If some of you remember her, I mean, that was her heart. You know, and she made good choices, I think, in hiring also.
To put things in perspective for our viewers, there's an organization called Cardinal Newman Society that kind of monitors this and evaluates colleges around the country and to see how they're doing. And actually, you know, in total, in some, you know, it's actually a very poor percentage. I think it's like 35 schools out of 200 and some that they have said adhere to this standard. And at this time, Aquinas is not one of them, but it's certainly you can tell that you guys have been doing some significant work in that area. What remains as far as addressing that, and how much work have you left to do?
Well, I'll start by saying I think one of the things from the audit that John and Robert did was to evaluate the school on all of the points of Ex Corde. And the one that we probably are glaringly off base from what's expected is the percentage of faculty members who are Catholic.
Okay.
And so that would keep us off the list right there. And they're watchdogs. I mean, they watch everything that we all do, all 260 of us around the country, and they point out things that they don't believe are in accordance with the Catholic Church or the teachings or whatever. And again, I think by just, and you referenced this, that I believe it's only 20 or 30, something like that are on the list. The rest of us are somewhere there. I mean, there's a real concerted effort among all of us because I am part of a national group of Catholic colleges and universities, and annually we get together and we talk and we exchange ideas where we are in this journey. But I think there's a strong desire for all of us to be more Catholic, if you will. But I do think that the Cardinal Newman Society is probably at the point of you have to be 100% of all the expectations. And certainly on any controversy of speakers or whatever. So, we feel there are many other touch points and others who evaluate us in that sense. And it's not necessarily something that we need to be a part of on that list to feel that we are doing things the way they should be done as a Catholic school.
Okay, sure.
And so we're working on it. And that's certainly one of the markers, but there are many others. Some great things that are going on at Aquinas also are all of the symbolism that we think is really important as a Catholic college. And so right now on Fulton Street entrance to our campus, we have changed it, modernized it. And
I see construction out there.
Well, there's construction, that's right. We're going to have a prominent entrance that will say Aquinas College. And more importantly, there's going to be a very significant statue of St. Thomas Aquinas right at the entrance there.
Awesome.
Thank you to donors and that have helped us do that. And the other exciting thing is that we are going to be building a chapel, as was referred earlier. And that's very significant for Aquinas. The sisters have had always thought there were other important things that they had to put the resources in. And we've always had a chapel at Aquinas, but when I went to school, it was in a classroom.
Really?
In the academic building, and currently it's in the old stables of the estate that the campus is on. And after a fire, it was renovated and made into a chapel, but never built as a sacred space. So we're going to build a sacred space, and we've had great counsel from a liturgical consultant, Duncan Stroik, who John got us connected with, and it's been architectural work is done, and we're into the fundraising, and we're almost there so that we can actually build it. The students are so excited, and they want it in the center of campus, and that's where we're going to put it.
Well, it's certainly symbolic of your focusing on, the Catholic identity. So that's awesome. I was going to ask, when in terms of your colleagues and those when you talk to other colleges, whether your colleagues have a sense of, kind of being in the same fight, effort to kind of move forward in that regard, or if you've felt like you were kind of going against the stream a little bit. But it's sounding like you're saying that that spirit of wanting to kind of come in line with those intents, I guess, of the document are pretty widespread.
Sure, I think so, and I don't know that there was ever an audit done before of the school against the document. But just from my experience there in these 5 years, there is a desire. What I have found is that the faculty and the staff really needed for someone to bring that forward and say, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to put this on the table, and we're going to address the things that we need to be done, the expectations that are on us, the fact that we have parameters as a Catholic school need to be addressed, need to be known, first of all.
Sure.
And I think I found myself that there were many on the faculty and on the staff who just had never had the deep conversations. And they were willing to do that. And we did that. We had dialogue sessions, small groups, so that we could really talk about the things that we were afraid of in terms of being a Catholic school, especially if you weren't Catholic. And the notion of pointing out that we were Catholic, that wasn't a choice, that was a non-negotiable. We were a Catholic college. And my relationship with the bishop, I worked with Bishop Hurley and now with Bishop Okowiak, have been very important in our journey to move to that dialogue.
Sure.
And both with Hurley and now with Bishop Okowiak, confer with them. They give me counsel. I meet regularly with them. They are not window dressing. They don't just show up for a donor dinner. We have them on campus. I have lunch with them every month. And we really try to make sure that we understand that there are issues that come up on a college campus of all sorts. And how do we address them as a Catholic school and still be embracing and welcoming and all of that to our students?
Right. I guess I'm a little curious in terms of, as you said, the percentage of faculty that aren't Catholic. How did they embrace or not embrace or just receive this audit and this push, this kind of realignment?
Well, it would depend on the person and their faith. Bob can attest to this. He's been here a lot longer than I have, but for many years we've had, so some of the non-Catholic faculty are going to be Protestant Christian faculty, and they've, by and large, as far as I know, always been very supportive of the overall, in a general sense, Christian mission of the college. And but most people think, in part to those dialogue sessions, which I will admit I was very doubtful of in the beginning. I thought, well, what are we going to dialogue about? Like one says, here's the non-negotiables, but once the fear and the ignorance and other things were relieved among some faculty, everybody seems to be, just about everybody seems to be on board with the direction of the school. That doesn't mean they're behind pushing 100%, but it means they know which direction it's going and they're willing to go that direction.
Sure.
And that's in fact what Corde Ecclessiae says. And so one of the things we did for our values statements at the college is take some wording directly from Corde about respecting the Catholic faith at the college, just directly from John Paul. And I remember it was a Protestant faculty member who said that doesn't seem strong enough. And I said, who wrote that? That was John Paul. I think it's okay. I think if it's okay with him, it's okay with me. It's okay with Juan, and we'll go with that.
I did it. What John said. Some of the most supportive of mission have been non-Catholic Christians.
Oh, excellent.
Some of the most difficult have been, on the other hand, former Catholics. And that's understandable. As we're intentional, we also want to bring in, Juan mentions hospitality. We want to be hospitable. The university is open to everybody. Sure. And you want to be hospitable, to be sure. But you need to know who you are. And I think that's certainly the direction right now, and that's what we're saying we are. And then people can buy into that as much as they want, but respectful if they don't want. And I think that's where we have to go.
Sure. So there's such a variety. I think we're attracting more and more students who are interested in the kinds of things we offer, and every aspect of the faith is available at the school for the students who want it.
Are you finding that you're attracting people who are looking for that more? And they're saying, hey, they've got something going on here.
Yes. Aquinas is if you look at it as a university, I see it as a persuasion Catholic college. There's a model that was developed by a Jesuit priest and a laywoman on different models. Steubenville, Christendom, Ave Maria are immersion. This is persuasion. But Carl Apple noted yesterday at a meeting that we have 11 students who are coming in through the RCIA. I mean, that's an incredible number. I mean, the students are way behind this, and they're becoming increasingly outspoken and very much support the church.
Awesome. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I want to really thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. It's just an honor to have you with us and to discuss this important topic. And it sounds like a cause for hope in the Catholic world.
Thank you for having the topic, really.
Oh,
thank you.
Our delight. So I want to thank you, and we want to thank you for being with us, and we hope that you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, we'll be praying for you in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.